Good evening, everybody. This is Rabbi Stephen Rav Shmuel here with. I wanted to do a little Devar Torah for Rosh Hashanah. We're starting into our high holiday season. It is beginning 5782, and a good year to all of you. May you all be first inscribed and then sealed into the book of life. So let's talk a little bit about the Torah readings that are done for Rosh Hashanah. And it's basically one chapter in Genesis, and then the next chapter for Rosh Hashanah too. And basically, what we're looking at is one of the trials of Abraham. Now, some of the sages say that Abraham went through 10 trials. 10 is a number that you see coming up at times. There's, I think, a few places in the Torah where you have a yud, which is the gematria for the number 10, and you have it either larger or smaller. I don't remember exactly what, but it refers to, or it's left out. It's one of those things when you're analyzing Torah where it alludes to the trials of Abraham. So we actually have 2 days of Torah reading and two of Abraham's trials. So the first trial is where Sarah finally, at the ripe old age, the ripe young age, maybe we should say of 90, gives birth to Isaac. So up until that time, she was barren. And the commentary in the art scroll Machzor for Rosh Hashanah, and let's review a little bit. Machzor means place. It kind of means your position. And what the what the Machzor is, it's a special siddur, special prayer book for one of the festivals or the high holidays. And in this particular time, Sarah has given birth to Isaac. Isaac is circumcised at 8 days of age. Abraham actually circumcises himself and everybody else, and he also circumcises Ishmael, who was 13, and this is why Muslim boys get circumcised at the age of 13 because they're following in the footsteps of Ishmael, who they consider to be their leader. Nevertheless, Isaac is circumcised, and we have a situation where Ishmael is, and the Hebrew word tzahek, he's making fun. He's playing with Isaac. And some of the commentary says that he was just, making fun of him. Some of the commentary says that he was actually playing with him by shooting arrows in his direction. And when Sarah saw this, she got, of course, alarmed that one of the arrows might unintentionally, on purpose, one of those, hit Isaac. So she goes to Abraham and says, basically, I want them out of here. They are pagans. They have no place in the future of our people who will come to learn God's teaching, the Torah. So I want them gone. And Abraham, of course, is very torn. He has compassion for his concubine Hagar, who was allegedly an Egyptian princess that was given to him as a gift when they were in Egypt. And Ishmael is his son. Ishmael is actually his firstborn son. But they don't have the sense of Torah the way Sarah does. So Abraham consults with Hashem, and Hashem confirms what Sarah says. Yes, they need to go. So, of course, Abraham sends them packing, gets up in the morning, and gives them provisions for their journey to who knows where. You would think that Hagar would want to make her way back to Egypt, which is where she's from. But instead, they get stuck, they run out of water, and they're in the desert or the wilderness. And Hagar places Ishmael a distance from her because she thinks the boy's going to die, and she doesn't want to have to see this terrible sight. The rabbis and the sages, of course, cite her and admonish her for the fact that you're a mother. This was your son. What do you mean you don't want to see his suffering? Any other mother would be so concerned. She would cradle, she would give up her life looking for water. And instead she just puts him out of sight, sits there and starts weeping. So an angel comes down and says, we've heard your pain. Look over there, and she opens her eyes, and behold, there's a well, whether she didn't see it or whether it just seemed to appear, whatever the case is. Now she has water to give to Ishmael. The angel also tells her that, well, Ishmael will be the father of the people too, which he was. He was the father of Islam. And we see how they've grown, which is very interesting because Abraham was told by God, your people will be like the sands on the sea, which some people interpret that they will be trampled on, and the stars in the sky, which means they will have lofty aspirations. The point is that we Jews, there's, I believe the recent count is 15 million of us in the world. 15 million Jews in the world. Compare that to a billion Muslims, and I believe it's almost a billion Christians in the world. So much is for being like the stars in the sky, the sands in the sea. Or are we not there yet? Are we working our way? Now, of course, in the last few years, we've seen the rise of anti-Semitism as social media becomes more and more prominent, as people are able to get together and share their ideas and, of course, share their hate. And I'm pausing because there's a part of me that wants to go on and make a commentary, but it's probably not appropriate here. This is, after all, the new year. We're supposed to be looking, not we're supposed to be, we're going to. We're going to be looking at some of our failings of the previous year, and we're going to commit to do better. God's watching us. He wants to see how we do. He wants to see our sincerity, etc., etc. So there it is. So in the meantime, Abraham and Sarah go to Abimelech, and they make a deal, and they decide to exchange gifts, and they want to live in peace, etc., etc. The next portion, the next Rosh Hashanah 2, the Devar Torah for that, the Torah portion, is the Akeidah, the binding of Isaac. The last trial of Abraham, an angel of God comes down to Abraham and says, take your firstborn son, who you love so much, take him out and offer him. Now, it doesn't say sacrifice. I know we're playing with words a little bit, but the word is olah, which means an offering. Olah also means to rise up. Now, think about this for a moment. Abraham is told, and yes, ancient Hebrew words were used a little differently than we use them today. We have a very technological, very diverse world, so you need words to be very specific. Back then, a lot of the words were conceptual. Olah, it was an offering where the animal was burned completely and it goes up in smoke. Olah means to go up for a witnessing, one of the aliyahs, Olah, that's where the word comes from, of the Torah, of the reading of the Torah. Olah, to go up, right? So it also means offering. So is Abraham offering Isaac to go up to, and when we say go up, is that sort of a metaphor, like his soul, his nefesh, his neshama will go up to Hashem and he will serve Hashem? I like to think it does. I like to think there's that connotation there, being that, of course, like I said, ancient Hebrew is very conceptual versus specific. So you have connotations as well as denotations. So Abraham brings Isaac up. Now, a lot of people assume, well, Isaac was just a child. The Art Scroll Chumash does the math and says, no, Isaac was 37 years old. Because remember, he comes back down afterwards and he's praying in the field, and Eliezer brings home Rebecca. And by the way, that's the end of this particular portion. Kind of skip ahead a little bit of a foreshadowing, maybe a spoiler alert. But the end of this particular chapter talks about the lineage of how Rebecca was born. So Rebecca is to be the wife of Isaac, who is the heir to what will ultimately become Torah and therefore Judaism. So Abraham takes his 37-year-old son, or child, however you want to believe it, up a 3 days journey. That way, Abraham has time to think. He's not acting impetuously. He's taking his time, and he leads Isaac. He piles wood on him, and Isaac says, where's the offering? And Abraham says, God will provide. And just as he's about to slay him, he has his knife up there, about to strike. An angel comes and stays his hand. Now, the point of acknowledging that Isaac was 37 years old means that Isaac could have overpowered his father, who was frail. He was over 100 years old, right? Could have overpowered him any time and said, no, I'm not going to do this. But Isaac went willingly. He was willing to offer himself up to Hashem and thus earn the place to be the successor, the heir of Abraham, of Abraham. And of course, we know what happens after Abraham's hand is, prevented by the angel. He turns around. There's a ram in the thicket. Sacrifices the ram, and in honor of the ram, we blow the shofar. Rosh Hashanah and other days too, the month, a few other times. Interesting how we have angels involved in this. Angels showing Hagar the well, angels staying Abraham's hand. Something for the next metaphysical conversation we have for Judaic studies or whatever. All right, so Shana Tov, Happy New Year. May you all be inscribed and sealed in the book of life. I may or may not do this again for Yom Kippur, we'll see. But thank you all for tuning in. It's been a great full year there at Temple Shalom of Ontario. We have some new people who will be joining us religiously, and I'm looking